The clock here, I don't know why it is running so fast, but it is the time when we should wind up now, but we have many learned speakers, and also we have to listen to the president's speech of Ravanji Maharaj, who come all the way from Kolkata. So let us see the other two speakers would confine themselves to 7 minutes. We have Mrs. Avi Sabawala. She is a corporate trainer, so she can speak for hours together, but we will have a nice talk from her about the Zoroastrian viewpoint about the Angels House. So I request Mrs. Avi Sabawala to come with.
Swamiji very rightly said that as a corporate trainer I can speak for hours. In fact, I normally speak for 7 hours, not 7 minutes. But you are very lucky because I have a rather bad throat. So I'm very fortunate that I have to speak only for 7 minutes. And to help me in that, I also have a watch with me. Respected Swamiji, distinguished religions, different cultures, all coming together and yet being tolerant and being able to live together, to be friends together, to pray together, and to be together. Zoroastrianism is a religion which was propounded by the prophet Zarathustra. In fact, Zoroaster is the Greek form of Zarathustra. This was supposed to be more than 3,000 years ago, maybe even earlier. And this was the first monotheist religion of the world. Zarathustra propounded the concept of one God, and this brought in the concept of monotheism into the world. In fact, Zarathustra was a man of many vocations. Not very many people know that he was also a great astronomer. And he also propounded the concept of a meridian which passes through the system. But that, of course, is a different topic altogether. Zarathustra's teachings of Zoroastrianism are propounded in the book of the Gathas, that is the hymns of praise to God. And he propounded the concept of good over evil. These are the fight of good over evil, and also to make the right choice that provides happiness. Zoroastrianism teaches that happiness comes to him who gives happiness to others. There are some other sayings also which talk about happiness, and essentially you will always find a Parsi and a Zoroastrian always a very happy person. In fact, it is said, the story goes that normally when children are born, they come into this world and they cry. But the Prophet Zoroaster, when he was born, he came into this world laughing. So that was where the whole concept of happiness really came in right at birth. He proclaimed the one omniscient, omnipotent God as the creator, sustainer, and the promoter of the universe. His teachings explain how God's divine attributes are reflected in the universe and in our living world. And he advised people to acquire and cultivate divine attributes, particularly the good mind, the Bahumana as it is called, and righteousness, to elevate themselves in harmony with God and to listen to God's guiding voice within them, to establish a universal fellowship and an ideal society, chosen by people for peace and prosperity to attain perfection and immortality. He propounded 6 Amesha Spentas. Now these Amesha Spentas are nothing but actually the divine emanations or aspects of the Creator, of the one God. These are Bahumana, the spirit of the good mind; the Asha, spirit of truth and righteousness; the Shatara, the spirit of holy sovereignty; the Spenta Almighty, the spirit of benevolent devotion and love; the Vata, the spirit of perfection and well-being; and the Amata, the spirit of immortality. For the purpose of our topic today, we will talk about the Asha, the spirit of truth and righteousness. In effect, this is actually the law of harmony. It is a balance, essential for the balance and the well-being of our world. Harmony is absolutely essential because without harmony in the world, there cannot be that kind of balance. We cannot have the world running as it normally does. What he really stressed was the harmony of both the spiritual and material aspects of creation, and therefore it provides a very holistic approach to life. Reverence, care, and compassion for the earth is inculcated through the theology of the Amisha Spentas and the Yazatas, and I was really delighted to hear Dr. Kahil talk about the topic for the coming Parliament on healing the earth. I think that is very relevant today, and it is something that will hold us in good state for years to come. Also had in the Asha, the law of harmony, there are three very important thoughts which have been put forward by Zarathustra, which of course we have all heard of, but he has talked of good thoughts, good words and good deeds. Friends, today, anything which happens in the world, any actions which take place, really emanate in thought. And good thoughts, pure thoughts, sincere thoughts, thoughts of harmony, are the emanations, are what will really lead to the actions that we see today in the world, to the words which people utter, to the thoughts which people express today. Ultimately, it all starts in our thoughts. And good thoughts are something which we really need to look at. Pure thoughts, thoughts of peace and harmony. This is what Zarathustra put forward very, very strongly, and this indeed is essentially the law of harmony. What are some of the practices that we follow? We have the Char Dishanu Namaskar, that is the salutation to the four directions. The Jamwani Bar, the grace before the meals, which is also very common in most religions. The Kutranu Bhuk. This concept enjoins every Zoroastrian to ensure that every Zoroastrian family feeds a stray animal. Not the pedigreed kind that we have in our homes, but a stray animal, whether it is a cow or a dog. We are enjoined to see that we keep some morsel for a stray animal. So this is not only caring for our fellow human beings, it is also caring for all living beings. And that compassion and that care is what really epitomizes a person who says he's truly religious. Whether he's a Zoroastrian or a person professing any other religion, but to care for a living being is what really sets a person apart as a truly religious person. Many of our scriptures were destroyed by various invasions. One of them, of course, the most famous person on earth, one of the most famous generals, Alexander of Macedonia, destroyed most of our books. And there were other invasions too, which means that a lot of scriptures were destroyed. So a lot of traditions have been oral traditions. Now, one of the concepts is of universal consciousness. And today, when we talk of globalization, we talk of the global village. We are increasingly become a global village. We are interacting with people from all across the world. This concept of universal consciousness gains a great deal of importance, because ultimately the consciousness is universal to all. It permeates every living being. It is not the purview of the Zoroastrians or of any one particular sect. It is the right and the privilege of every person on this earth to feel that kind of consciousness, that kind of humanity, which is absolutely essential today if we are to live in a harmonious world. It penetrates everything. It is part and property of the cosmos, and every living entity is able to draw from the reservoir of universal consciousness. Dr. Somayaji mentioned about a Japanese girl. She chooses to marry anyone. Well, let me tell you, friends, I have a sister-in-law who's Japanese. In fact, my family, you might call it a rather international family. We have people who are married in, not only from all communities in India, but also from all continents barring the Arctic and the Antarctic. So we are truly international, and of course it has really enriched our interactions. Because when we get together, no, we don't argue about who is better than whom. We in fact get to learn a lot about each other's cultures and way of thinking, and also a lot of assimilation. And my cousin, who is half Indian, half Scottish, has now married a Japanese girl. So our next generation is also promising to be very intercultural, very international, and certainly very interreligious also, which definitely bodes very well for the future, at least of our family. I would like to end with a short poem which is anonymous, written by my fellow community member, but it is anonymous. It says, "Life is love, don't trade for hate. Our world is like a beautiful garden, dotted with beds of different religions, Hindu, Muslim, Christians, Baha'is, Jews, Sikhs, as well as Zoroastrians, in the same garden, cohabiting side by side, emitting freshly scented aromas of loving, giving, caring, sharing, peacefully we can abide. Our world is like an enchanted forest. We can make it what we want it to be. Wouldn't life be worth living together in perfect harmony? And I would also say in perfect happiness." In fact, when the Parsis who came from Iran about 13 centuries ago, when we landed here, we were definitely welcomed by the Hindu king who gave us refuge. And indeed, it has been a great privilege for the Parsis to be part of such a wonderful country, with so many different religions, with so much of variety of religions, with so much of variety of culture. And with that, as the story goes, we, the minuscule community, which is fast dwindling, a drop in the ocean perhaps, have also, as the story goes, have added the sugar to the cup of milk, the very widely known story of the Qisse Sanjan. So on this note, I would like to thank you all for inviting me to be part of this very distinguished gathering. In fact, normally when Swamiji speaks, I am in the audience. And today, it is my privilege also to share these few thoughts with you. Thank you very much for patient hearing.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Avi Sabawala, for the enlightening talk, and also I didn't know that she was from an international family. And now I would request Sri Amarjit Bomra to present the Sikh viewpoint on this subject of harmony.
Sat Sri Akal and good evening to all children of God. I am the last speaker of the session, and because as such my religion is also the latest and the youngest. The Sikhism is the youngest and the fifth largest organized world religion, and it was founded 500 years ago by Guru Nanak. It emphasizes the belief in one supreme being, the Creator. While it is a progressive religion well ahead of its time, when it was founded over 500 years ago, the Sikh religion today has a following of over 20 million people worldwide and is ranked as the world's fifth largest religion. Sikhism teaches a message of devotion and remembrance of God at all times, truthful living, equality of mankind, and denounces superstitions and blind rituals. Now, how it happened? Whenever there is a big catastrophe in the land, whenever there is a decline of righteousness, whenever there are oppression and chores in the land, whenever the faith of the people in God wanes, great men or saints appear from time to time to enrich sacred literature, to protect Dharma, to destroy unrighteousness, to reawaken the love of God in the minds of the people. When India was in a bad plight, Babur invaded India, his armies assaulted and sacked several cities, the captives were forced to regress work, there was wholesale massacre everywhere, the kings were bloodthirsty, cruel and tyrannical, there was no religion, there was religious persecution, the real spirit of religion was crushed by ritualism, the heart of the people was filled with falsehood, cunningness, selfishness and greed. At such a time, Guru Nanak came to the world with a message of peace, unity, love and devotion to God. He came at a time when there was a fight between the Hindus and the Mohammedans, when real religion was replaced by mere rituals and forms. He came to preach the gospel of peace, brotherhood, unity, humanity, love and sacrifice. It is said that Sadguru Nanak Pargatya when he told that Chandan Hoya. So he came with a message. And the message of Guru Nanak is very clear. It said that countless are the ways of meditation and countless are the avenues of love. So this is from a Japi Sir 17 Holy. I can see and feel what Guru Nanak meant. What he meant was, accept all humans as your equals and let them be your only sect. Or as Guru Gobind Singh said, Manas ki jaat sabe eke pehchan ho, means recognize the single caste of humanity. That is important. Coming from the purest tradition of Sikhism, where the holy book contains not only the verses of the Guru, Sikh Gurus, but also of the Hindus and the Muslim saints, and where the ultimate is received with a variety of perceptions and relationships. The Sikh Gurus reiterate that Allah and Ram are the same. So is the Muslim mosque and the Hindu temple, emerging historically and geographically between the Eastern tradition of Hinduism and Western faith of Islam. Sikhism wholeheartedly accepts both Eastern and Western perceptions of the divine and their various modes of worship. Vaheguru is the Guru mantra for the followers of Guru Nanak. The other important mantra for repetition is Ek Onkar Sat Nam Kartapur Nirbhav Nirbhair Akal Murk Ajuni Saipan Guru Prasad. It means that God is but one, His name is true, He is the creator, He pervades the whole universe, He is without fear, He is without enmity, He is immortal, He is birthless, He is self-born and self-existent, He is the remover of darkness and He is merciful. The Lord is eternal, He has no beginning and no end. The Granth begins with the following. There is but one God whose name is true and He is the creator. It contains a code of high morals, purity of life, obedience to Guru mercy, charity, temperance, justice, straightforwardness, truthfulness, sacrifice, service and love are among the virtues on which great emphasis is laid, while lust, anger, pride, hatred, egoism, greed, selfishness, cruelty, backbiting and falsehood are vehemently condemned. I am not any religious leader. I go to the Gurudwara, district place of worship, sporadically, where I pay my respect to Guru Granth Sahib. It's a collection of 6 scriptures which is seen as the living embodiment of the Guru. They serve as a guide and protector and enlightens us. One of the fundamental teachings is that we are all God's children. The entire creation and existence is created in the image of the Almighty. God does not have a favorite. We are created as one and the same. That includes men, women and children, irrespective of color, caste, creed, education, status or disability. In the eyes of the God, we are all created equal. The definition of a Sikh is defined as a person who faithfully believes in the existence of one eternal God and does not owe any allegiance to any other religion. And Sikh living, there are two important aspects of living as a Sikh: the adherence to a personal discipline and development of a strong family life. The involvement in the life of one's local community, ensuring the well-being of even its weakest and informed members, both locally and globally, for all mankind. This is the practical aspect of the 3 pillars of Sikhism promoted by Guru Nanak called one ke sukhum, means share and consume. To lead a disciplined life, one of the important aspects of this disciplined life is to treat all humans as equal and work towards the day that men and women of caste, classes, races and religions treat each other with grace, respect and equality. Gurudwaras is the most sacred site where you go, and many of you must have visited the Golden Temple, and most of you must have observed that there is something very typical about the Golden Temple. See, the Harminder Sahib or the Golden Temple has entrances and doors on all the 4 sides. It has got entrances, 4 doors on all the 4 sides, north, east, west, south. And Guru Nanak has exclaimed, "My faith is for the people of all castes and all creeds, from whichever direction they come and to whichever direction they go." During the first phase of migration, the racial policies pretty much forced into homogenizing matters, and in recent days, sacred spaces and sacred times are confined to ethnic ghettos left to the individual communities. The result, we are impoverished, we are lost out to the extremely rich of images, languages, metaphysics, rituals, music and poetry, and many other wonderful resources of a global society. Sadly, even after a century and a half, we are far from fulfilling God's witness exhortation. Those souls ceased, those are God's purpose on the first. The earth to be spanned, connected by network, the races neighbors to marry and even in marriage, the oceans to be crossed, the distance brought near, the lands to be welded together. The aim of true education and knowledge is character building. It is to raise a person from animal instinct, which you have seen in normally using communal rights. It is the animal instinct at work. So we have to raise a person from animal instinct to a fine human being. Not only that, from the fine human being to the fine spiritual being, and from fine spiritual being to ultimate divine being. We may have times in producing physical and technological networks, but we have failed in creating mental and spiritual links. We need to work together. We need to experience the fullness of humanity and the transcendence of the divine. Together, Christians, Sikhs, Hindus, Muslims, Jews, Buddhists, men and women, we all should relish the plurality and diversity of our human culture. To end with, my minister told me that we should end the speech with this very famous sloka from Guru Granth Sahib written by Guru Nanak. It goes like this: अव्वल अल्लाह नूर पाया कुदरत के सब बंदे एक नूर से सब जग उजिया कौन भले को मन.
Thank you very much, Sri Amarjit Bohra, for your very nice speech. And now we are eagerly awaiting the president's speech from Brahmananji Maharaj, who has come all the way from Calcutta. So I would humbly prostrate myself, convey my humble pranams to Divya Maharaj, and I would request him to give his presidential speech, and there is no limit of 7 minutes for him.
Om Ano Bhadra Pratavoyantu Vishwata. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Distinguished representatives of different religions, distinguished audience and friends. For more than 2 hours and a half, I listening attentively to the sincere speeches made by different speakers. I have attended many interfaith meets in India and outside, and I will certainly say that today's experience of mine, well, I shall remember for long, one of the best I would say, and for that I congratulate the organizer, Dr. Kileshwaranandaji, and also Dr. Shomaya, and also the speakers. Now, if I am to sum up the speeches of all the speakers, only one word I think I can mention. Everyone emphasized on harmony, keeping that spirit. I must also keep harmony with the time. See, it is about 9 already. So I am not going to make a speech. I shall make a few short observations. First of all, whenever we meet in interfaith dialogue, what I have observed that everyone tries to defend the particular faith which he represents. And during this type of discussions, usually we don't open our heart, we don't speak frankly, we don't understand as much as is expected of us. So I do remember in one meeting the famous philosopher, Professor G.N. Mohan, said that, but to make interfaith dialogue successful, the emphasis on communication in a suitable way. And he says that the principle of understanding, whenever we speak a little freely, then we can understand each other better. That is something important to consider. Again, I feel that we discussed what about interfaith dialogue, interfaith meet, etc. But I think much more emphasis should be given on intra-faith. Because in every major religion, Muslim religion, there are groups, subgroups, so many divisions. Recently I was reading a book on Protestantism in America. We do believe that there of groups, and they can be closed under 12 categories. So, if you look at Hinduism, if you look at Islam, every such religion, major religions, there are so many groups and there are so many conflicting ideas. That should be taken into consideration. That is a very important point. Third, very important point that I would like to mention that India, as we see today, I completed my school education in British India, and I have dreamt of India. As I could understand Swami Vivekananda in those days, I do remember I heard a speech of Gandhi, very close to him. I was standing and he gave a speech that impressed me so much. And before that, I read Vivekananda, and still I am reading, I can understand. But I had a vision of a greater India. India has made a lot of progress. But at the same time, if you look into this particular problem, the relationship between state, society, and religion, particularly in the Indian context, it is very confusing. First of all, this concept of secular that has been introduced. First of all, in the beginning of this Constitution, and in 76, the amendment that brought about, it has created so much of confusion, and those who are interested in value education, they know how difficult it is to have a definite kind of program. If you study the reports of different commissions and committees on value education, starting from the first one, Radhakrishnan Commission in 49, after independence, right after the 1986 statement, and actually the last and important document after Ramakrishna Murthy's recommendations. Everywhere you find that there are so many interesting recommendations, but there is already a shift about the trust that has been given in earlier recommendations than to what they finally recommend. Much more important than this, in all these commissions, the recommendations have been made, and most of them, if I am allowed to say, 95% of them have not been implemented. This is one of the reasons, why there is so much of problem in India. Our young people, and nowadays the families have become nuclear families. So the values they used to pick up, the growing children in a joint family, had something, but nowadays parents, they are usually very busy. Even if they are not busy, they are very careful in handling a particular son or daughter they have. And these days, boys and girls, they are more sensitive than others. So they, even if they see something, they don't try to help the child as they would have liked to. In this context, it is very important for us to consider when we discuss interfaith or intra-faith, the problems that find in the context of present society and the state. And this particular day, the 11th of September, as Swami Vivekananda explained in the very beginning, it has gained its importance. Only I wish that in every such meeting, if we discuss the first and the last speech of Swami Vivekananda during the Parliament religions, I tell you there are three important books, voluminous books, on the history of the Parliament of Religion, 1893. One is in 2 volumes, and other in single volumes, are big volumes. But in all the volumes, it has been categorically mentioned that Swami Vivekananda practically represented the spirit of the Parliament. the last speech is very important. Though none is mentioned categorically, but the ideas the speakers have, placed before us are pretty much related to that. I will not take any further time, but only one point I would like to tell you. The word harmony and the concept of harmony of religions as Swami Vivekananda tried to place before the power of the religion, and as we find from the life and teachings of Sri Ramakrishna, need to be studied a little more carefully. They are often wrongly presented. Sri Ramakrishna never said all religions are the same of ever. He said that each is a valid path, and any path, if sincerely followed, will take to the highest fulfillment that a worshipper or a devotee expects. This is something very important. Another very important point he has mentioned, he said that Ishtanishtha. You must stick to your own religion, you must stick to your own faith, and whatever religious instruction you receive from your Guru, stick to it, do it sincerely. At the same time, he said that Sarva which is very much propagated when we discuss Gandhi's teachings. He said that at the societal level, Sri Ramakrishna says, Vijaya Krishna Goswami, a very famous religious leader of those days, and he was a Brahma leader at that time, he said that, well, when you meet people outside your Samaj, Brahma Samaj, mix with them freely, treat them as your own, and don't harbor any kind of malice towards any of them. At the same time, don't give up your own faith and practice it sincerely. This is one point, and the last point that I would like to refer to. This is something that is honored as the last teaching of Holy Mother, Sri Sharada Devi. That teaching, famous teaching can be divided into two parts. I am going to mention the last part only of the two parts. There she says, don't treat people as others. Treat everyone as your own. This is something very, very important. We have divided the world as ours and others. And most of the conflicts and confusion is because of this attitude. Sometimes we include some more persons within the fold of ours and exclude the remaining one. But always there is this difference. If that, as has been mentioned repeatedly by several persons, if we can accept that all are children of God, or the same self, the same soul, or the same spirit is in everyone, in whatever way you look at it, you will find that every religion mentions on this particular issue. So if we pay attention to this, then I think many of the problems will be solved out. And when we meet in interfaith discussions, etc., as I mentioned, particularly by one speaker, very empirically, let us be faithful, let us be sincere when we discuss. And not only that, let us try to spread that message in our practical lives so that others can learn from us, or we can communicate to others, to our own society, to our own community, so that the fundamental truth spread. We have to solve this particular problem of religious conflict. India maintained a wonderful record, which was first mentioned in 1820 by Vincent Smith, the British historian, that such a wonderful record cannot be seen in any other country, in any other society. Unfortunately, unfortunately, during the last few hundred years, that cropped up a problem of religious conflict. Those of you who are interested, please read the historian Tarachard's book, Freedom Movement. And there you will see how the British government, maintained their policy. And there are several letters, mentioned in his book. There you will find, how we have been trapped in that, into a particular issue of the British government. And still we are suffering from that. So we have to correct ourselves. And for that, harmony of religion has been emphasized by practically all the religious leaders all over the world. Has to be emphasized and should be practiced. Many, many thanks for giving an opportunity to share with all of you. And I shall remember this particular event for a long time. Many
We are extremely grateful to Revered Swami Prabhanandaji for his blessings and for his very, very important suggestions. In his very short speech, he has given so many important suggestions, and we are sure that we would like to implement. Particularly, he said that this message is not to be remain confined to the walls of the seminar hall. It is to infiltrate in the society from wherever we come in contact. We should try to implement these suggestions. Also, is very important idea about the intra-faith dialogues. Apart from the interfaith dialogues, all these suggestions we would like to take up and we would like to obey. At the same time, I was talking about the values. I am very glad to inform you that tomorrow from 8:30 to 11:30 we have an important seminar, Value Education, Why and How. And Revered Maharaj is going to preside over that function and is going to give valuable suggestions on how this can be implemented. So all those who have not yet enrolled, they can enroll themselves in the counter. Please do come. Arts faculty of Arts Seminar Hall, where we have organized this, 8:30 to 11:30. The Chancellor Madam will be coming to inaugurate it, and there will be Vice Chancellor also, and Vice Chancellor of the Babasaheb Ambedkar Open University, Dr. Manoj Soni, would be also there. So you are welcome there. And tomorrow evening, Revered Maharaj is going to give a spiritual discourse at 7:30 p.m. So you are all welcome. And you must see the Ramakrishna Mission Vivekananda Memorial Baroda, where Swami Vivekananda himself stayed. I extend a hearty welcome to all of you. Before I request Dr. Aruna Hasgiwala to propose a vote of thanks, a very small ritual. We don't have words to express our gratitude to the speakers and to Shantilal Sumayya ji and to all the other learned speakers. So it's a very, very, very small token of appreciation. I would request Swami Prabhanandaji Maharaj that on behalf of all of us, on behalf of Ramakrishna Mission, Revered Prabhanandaji Maharaj would felicitate all the speakers. First of all, to felicitate Dr. Shantibai Somayya. I would request Revered Maharaj now. I would now request Revered Maharaj to felicitate Archbishop Fernandez from Gandhinagar. I request Revered Maharaj to felicitate Mr. Sami Buber. To Dr. Kala Acharya, to Dr. Nitin Vyas, Sri Deepak Bhai Shah, Sri Hari Bomra, all of you are sitting here.
I am here to perform a very sweet, pleasant task of thanksgiving. I won't take longer. We all are exhausted, we are overwhelmed, we are enlightened with such powerful presentations and thought-provoking ideas that my words will not have that much of impact. But before I begin thanking all the distinguished dignitaries, I'm sure everyone feels at the end of this interfaith meet that life would be colorless without faith. Faith brings colors to our life. It is like a rainbow, and it is the driving force in everyone's life. It moves us, it stimulates us, it enlightens us, and possibly it creates a feeling of oneness with Almighty. Of course, to me it is like love, which has to be experienced and enjoyed. You can't express it. The joy we should get out of the faith. We heard many learned speakers, and we know that there are many faiths in the society. Each faith teaches to love mankind, love the fellow being, manavta hi dharm hai. If that is the basic premise, possibly we'll have to find out commonalities, good points from all the faiths. All of them have provided us a rich feast today, rich feast of ideas. And it is up to us to pick up and also to build what has been advocated, to build the unity, the binding, and also bring harmony. At this juncture, I would like to express our deep sense of gratitude on behalf of Ramakrishna Mission and of course the Maharaja Sayajirao University of Baroda. A deep sense of gratitude to Pujya Swamiji, Shri Prabhananji Maharaj, for being with us and accepting our invitation to preside over and bless us. Your blessings will always remain with us. They are divine blessings. And we will experience the aura of it throughout. We are indeed in debt, truly indebted to Shri Dr. Shantilal Somaiya for being with us, not only inaugurating this event, but also collaborating with us. Thank you, Dr. Somaiya, for giving us such support, concrete support, and also being with us at this age. He is of course youngest of all. We look forward to more collaborations of this kind with you and with your institute. We are very happy, though by chance, but Professor Kahil is with us. And it is really very fortunate to have him and listen to his powerful presentations. It has been very enlightening, and we look forward to your visits again to this beautiful city, Baroda, which you have appreciated. I assure you, on behalf of our university, that we have many more such events where you would really interact and enjoy interacting with all these learned scholars who are part of the university. We are also grateful to all the learned speakers. Their presentations have been very, very powerful. It touched our heart. It touched our soul. As I always say, that life has three dimensions: body, the soma, the mind, psyche, and the spirit. I think all the speakers tried to touch and influenced us and had developed a deep, conviction that faith alone can bring joy and harmony. I am also thankful to such wonderful audience, the patient's audience, and the media, the print and electronic media, for covering this event and publicizing the event as well. Last but not the least, I am thankful to all those who have supported the organizers and everyone who had contributed in making this meet so successful. To conclude, I am sure with the beautiful expressions of these words by these learned speakers, they are great, definitely, but we also feel glad. So at the end of the event, Listening to their journey, their explorations, their discoveries, we feel great and glad. And let us depart with this feeling that we will be one and we will experience this joy forever. Thank you.
Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat.